feel like with adult friendships, you pretty much know right away whether it's someone that you're going to be close with. It doesn't take 20 hangouts to get there.
No. And you're also not like drinking at a bar, not really talking about life.
Yeah, like you're having deep conversations pretty much up front. Hey everyone, welcome back.
Hello, and happy new week.
Happy new week, guys. We're so excited that you're joining us again, and we're going to do a little catch up and then get into our topic for the day.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Alex, why don't you tell us, how is your week going?
It's going a lot better now. At the beginning of the week, I definitely was having a really hard time with prednisone, just like bad anxiety, not sleeping well. And so I just kind of like took a couple of days to be not on my phone as much. Hello, Knox. Do some reading, be outside. And I think that that's helped a lot, just having some quiet time. Yeah. And still in a flare up, waiting for or waiting for Rituxan to get approved and start that. So anxious to start that, but ready. I feel ready to go.
Yeah. So for people that don't know, prednisone is a steroid.
Yes.
It has really gnarly side effects. I have heard when I was taking it, it's called like the devil's Tic Tac or devil's candy.
Yep.
It just makes you feel kind of nutty.
Like actually psychotic.
Yeah. And not like yourself. Does that resonate with you? Like you're feeling
oh yeah,
out of sorts?
Very out of sorts, heightened anxiety, heightened emotionalness and sensitivity. I get like kind of paranoid, honestly, when I'm on it, where I think like everyone's upset with me or that like I'm dropping the ball on, just like hyper self-critical. And then you don't sleep, which exacerbates all of that. You get really hungry, you gain weight, it makes your body swell. Yeah. I mean, it helps. It works. It works. It comes at a big cost.
Yeah. When I was on it, I gained a ton of weight. Like I was eating ice cream on the daily, and not just like regular ice cream, like a whole like ice cream sundae with like syrup and nuts and all this stuff on it, whipped cream on it. So I totally get it.
You have to treat yourself when you're on that medication, you know?
Yeah. I feel like at that point you're like, anything that makes you feel better, you'll have it.
I think so.
How long do you have to stay on it?
Probably a couple months.
Okay.
So like for autoimmune stuff, you can go on there's a couple different things that you can do for steroids. You can get like a IV Solumedrol, which is usually like if you're inpatient or in the ER, they'll give you that. So when I was in my last hospitalization, I did that. You can get intramuscular like IM shots of it, or shots directly into like nodules for vasculitis. Those I prefer because it's in your body and out really quick. And then you have like the oral prednisone, which is systemic. For flare-ups, that can range anywhere between like 20 to 80 milligrams per day. I'm at 40, which is like a pretty hefty dose. Yeah.
That's I think you're just gonna have to let it ride out and see. And hopefully, I mean, I think more than anything, it's just going to be the fact that it's like effective and that you end up internally healing. What else is going on? Do you feel like you're getting support the way you need? How is that going?
Yeah, I think this has been like, I'm really grateful for Cooper because he is so calming to me during this period. Maybe like a funny little trick that we do with prednisone. When I am in like a heightened state and I start to become kind of snippy or like my tone is not great, we have a code word and it's he goes, "Hey Victoria." And that is me recognizing that my alter ego, my prednisone ego, is out and being feisty.
That's so funny.
And it kind of like lightens the mood. It lets me know that he's giving me grace right now and to like check myself. And then I'm just like trying to be more communicative with like my friends and family, saying like, I'm super anxious right now. I need extra like love and support and like patience. And I feel like that's been super helpful too.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you get a lot of people asking you like, so like, are you better now? Like, how are you feeling? Are you out of the slump of this?
Yeah. And I'm like kind of split on how I feel about that. Half of it, and maybe this is the prednisone, half of it, I get like super frustrated, sad, angry of like, no, like I haven't started my new medicine yet. Like I still feel like shit. This is a chronic illness. Like I'm never going to be 100% better. And then the other part of me is like, oh, like my circle cares about me and like they want me to be feeling better. And I have to like really remind myself that people have good intent. It's not to be like that they don't understand chronic illnesses or autoimmune diseases and how they ebb and flow. It's them caring and checking in, but just asking in a way that on a certain hour or day might rub me the wrong way.
Yeah.
What about you? How do you deal with that?
I think it's a tough one, right? Because I think people are coming from a good place, but I think when people say like, are you better now? I think that one bothers me.
too.
I think I more so just like the questions that are like, how's today going?
Yeah, open-ended.
Or, yeah, like leave it open-ended and then let me be like, yeah, like it's better than yesterday, or no, I'm feeling worse. Like kind of just like a comparing day to day versus like comparing like I'm better overall.
I totally agree. Because I think when you say like, are you better? It doesn't give us space to actually tell the person how we're feeling. And whether intended or not, it kind of shuts down the conversation of like, this person only wants me to be better. Like maybe that's the only version of me they can interact with.
Yeah.
And I think that can be really disappointing and tough.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a simple thing that I just realized, like a yes or no question is really tough and can feel triggering.
Yeah.
And a open-ended question feels a lot more welcoming for us to share how we're feeling.
I totally agree. My mom once told me this, like, I love when people say, walk me through your day.
Yeah.
Because then you like can really open up and like let yourself be vulnerable with that friend, person, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's better for both parties.
Yeah. I like that. I also like walk me through your week, right? Because it's like maybe like today was hard, but like yesterday was good. So I feel like when people ask me like, how's your week been? That's easier for me to be like, yeah, like Monday, Tuesday, I wasn't feeling well. It was really low. And then I was up and about. So it makes me feel a lot more like it seems like the week is a more comprehensive way to describe how I'm doing versus the day to day.
I love that. And then you don't have the pressure of like, man, am I complaining again that today's been a bad one?
Yeah.
Which we all
exactly
hate having to do and say, even if that is the reality.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. How about you? How's everything been since coming back from your retreat?
I got back just like a couple days ago and I'm headed back out in a couple days. That being said, I'm really like enjoying these few days at home.
Yeah.
So, like I went to the farmer's market and then I cooked and I've been just like kind of nesting at home, but also busy, like running some errands, getting all my doctor's appointments in, getting all of my refills for my medicines, making sure that I have everything for my trip coming up.
So important.
And but also I think one of the big things I've been doing since I've been home is like continuing to meditate, continuing to like employ the teachings from the retreat. And so that's been really nice. I feel like my couple days at home, like pre-retreat, would have felt a lot more stressful. And now I'm kind of just in this like Zen state and
I love it.
just like filled with gratitude. Not to sound cheesy, but
no, I
feel
that's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like just grateful and happy, which is really nice.
That's amazing. What has been the easiest part of like the things that you learned to reintegrate, and what has been like more effort or a little bit more challenging than you would have anticipated?
I think one of the easier things, which is interesting because I would think it's harder to incorporate, is like getting up early and meditating first thing in the morning. We learned at the retreat, like you're most likely to be in like that theta brainwave that you need to be in for meditation, like in the morning hours of like 4 to 5 a.m.
That makes sense.
And it's so theta brainwaves, just a reminder, it's like right, you have those like right before you fall asleep and then right after you're waking up. So it's like that kind of in between state of like consciousness, unconsciousness. So it's easier to get your mind into theta when you're in those early hours. So incorporating that has actually been the easiest because I'm just like, okay, like I know that's like when it's optimal.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to set an alarm and get up and do my meditations, and then I can always take a nap later. That's been the easiest. The hardest has actually been doing my gratitude journal, which I normally do. I think I wake up and I'm so excited to do the meditation that I skip that part. And I think that's important to keep still doing because I think that also brings a lot of benefits.
Totally.
and it helps guide my day. And I think I just need to prioritize doing that first thing.
Yeah. I wonder if it would be good to do like after your meditation. Like that's how you end your transition from meditative state into normal day.
Yeah, I can try that.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
put too much pressure on yourself. You're doing great. Like the fact that you're waking up early and meditating, that's truly goals. Sick chick goals.
Yeah, it's really nice. Then the afternoon or late morning naps are also really nice.
I'm going to try to take a page out of your book next week and like do one day, see how it goes. I mean, hell, I'm on
Yes.
prednisone, so Lord knows when I'm awake, I'm awake.
Yeah.
Okay, so last week we sent out like a Q&A to you guys and said, what topics are you guys interested in Biz and I exploring a bit more? And we got great feedback. We're super excited to talk about each of the things that you guys want us to. One of the main ones was all things relationships, be that family, friends, coworkers, dating, marriage. So this week we thought we'd dive in and focus on friendships and social life as a sick trick.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so maybe let's set the stage as we do. Socializing before. What was your social life, Biz? Or were you introverted, extroverted? Kind of describe that aspect.
Yeah. So when I used to take those like personality tests that we would do in business school and like in the workplace, like Myers-Briggs is one of them that you can do like a shorter version online of. But I was like literally like the most extreme extrovert. Like it was like 100% on the E of that 4-letter acronym. And
Yes.
so I would say I was probably in that high extrovert stage from like ages like 20 to like 30.
Uh-huh.
Actually, no, that's not true. Probably up until like last year or so.
Yeah.
So like for like I would say for the last like 15 years or so, I've definitely been like high extrovert and super social. Like you could invite me to anything and I would come. I wouldn't even ask like who's gonna be there, what are we doing?
Yes,
I
girl.
would just show up and then I'd be like the last person to leave, which is so ridiculous now that I think back about it. But I just had this like social battery that everything was fun and I just wanted to be around people all the time.
Yeah, that's so true. Like when we would hang out, it would be until 4 a.m. We'd just stay up talking.
Yeah.
There was no off.
People would message me and be like, "Oh, I'm really tired. Like, how do you like do that all the time?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm fine."
It recharges your battery.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say highly social, highly outgoing, and ready, like down to go anywhere, do anything.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true for you.
How is it for you?
I would say pre-college, I was more introverted. I'd like doing like 1 or 2 social things a week, but being involved in like clubs and activities. From college through investment banking, I was also a yes girl. Like always wanted to go out, wanted to travel, whatever it was, like count me in, I'm there. And then after banking, when I started getting sick, that's when my transition kind of back to being more introverted started, I think. And like I get charged up definitely from like alone time, but I am also very extroverted or can be really extroverted. So I'm kind of like a split person, I would say. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think like around certain people, like I think when we hang out, like we will still have like our full hangouts.
Yes. But I can't do that with everyone. That's for damn sure.
I agree. I think that's definitely like that split part. But I think, I mean, so kind of like pivoting into like how did we, or like what was the switch for us? Like, I think one thing is like, it's kind of that like when you're straddling that in between of like, okay, like I can do certain things with certain people, but then like, you know, certain other things, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I have enough like social battery for that.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
part of that is just like, I think there's lots of different aspects of why that happens.
Yeah.
One of those is like your identity is shifting and it's harder. It gets harder and harder to relate to people that can't step into that new space with you, I think.
Yeah.
And so, you know, if you're like Biz and I are very like high empaths and being disingenuous or like trying to put on a mask or be this other person is really challenging and very socially draining.
Yeah.
So I think that was like one of the main sticking points is I remember like this, as I got more sick and as I started identifying as being sick, I stopped being able to relate to some of my friends at the time. And we've talked about this before, but like I was so young when I got diagnosed. Like with
Right.
vasculitis at least, that my friend group hadn't shifted or evolved from my like college drinking friends. So
Right.
it was like kind of this compounded time period in my life.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, like when I got diagnosed and I was in the hospital for that month-ish, that was like that in itself like was a resetting period, right? So it was like, okay, I'm not going to be going out doing the things I was normally doing.
Yes.
And then I think when I got discharged, like that's where it started for me. I started noticing that being around the people, like when they would come visit me, like it just felt very different. And then when I did start like going out and doing, more things again, I just felt kind of like quiet. I felt more isolated. I felt like I couldn't contribute to the conversations as much anymore. And that was like kind of this circle of like, okay, like I go to something, I'm kind of quiet, then it like makes me not want to go to something again. And then I started like becoming a little bit isolated.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, it's like just having different priorities, or like it's like I don't want to go out to a loud restaurant anymore. Like I don't want to be going out, staying out till like midnight, 1 a.m.
Mm-mm.
And the friends that do that and still, live their life like that, like I think that's great, but I just can't. It's just not something that like I really can do anymore.
Absolutely. And I think out of that group, there's only select people that are willing and like want to make that shift for you and be like, okay,
Yeah.
well, since you don't want to go and do this, or you can't, how can we hang out in a different way? And those those are the real people that we love. Those are
Yes.
awesome human beings. And
Totally.
like not knocking anybody for like socializing like that at all.
No.
It's just like
Right.
we physically cannot.
I have also learned that like the friends that like did show up in like the more like home settings for me, they've all kind of said they're like, oh, like we like this, like we actually like to like do things like this. So that's been really nice that they were like they were looking for like a way out as well.
Yeah.
And this kind of gave them like a way out to be like, okay, like let's hang out at home more.
I totally agree with that. And like what you're saying, those are probably the split people anyway that
Yeah.
we're putting on the mask to be able to go out still and do all the happy hours or go to a loud restaurant until late in the night.
Yeah.
And they really were just craving something like this. So that's totally a silver lining. We get to be the out for a lot of people.
Yeah, totally. How did you internally feel when you had to start like turning down plans or making that shift in your identity?
So guilty. Oh my God. And that was not just internal, but external too. Like I had 2 or 3 friends in Austin that, maybe I would cancel morning of something. And they were never for like one-on-one things. It was usually for like group hangouts.
Right. Which should be an easy out anyways.
Agreed. And these people just were really tough on me and would say like, you're such a flake. You're a bad friend because you don't show up to this stuff for us and XYZ. So I had this already internal pressure of, am I being a bad friend? Granted, I also was on prednisone. So like double whammy of internalizing, being hard on myself. And then I had these voices external echoing that. And so I was really like down and sad and out for about a year, where I didn't have new friends that were stepping in as much. And I was essentially breaking up with this group of friends that not only were not showing up for my health, but were making me feel bad about my health. And it extended beyond just, you're not showing up, but giving me a hard time about like who I was as a person, which was tough.
I think that's really tough. And just hearing you even say that, it's like you weren't showing up to like a happy hour or like going out to eat or like going out for drinks. Like you weren't like, it wasn't something serious that you weren't there for. It was just like the socializing. And so I think that in itself is just, I think, wrong. Like if you aren't able to make it to a social event, like it's totally okay to be like, hey, I can't come because of X, Y, and Z. And like you actually have a legit reason. It's not like you're canceling because you're hanging out with other friends or you're doing something else that's using that energy. You're literally trying to like stay at home and rest and recuperate.
Exactly.
And it's just, I think it's wrong to shame someone or make them feel guilty when they're sick and they can't come to something.
I agree. And at that point, I didn't have a diagnosis yet either, which I think further exacerbated it because people would think like, are you being lazy? Like, what's wrong with you? And being chronically ill, I had days where I looked and felt normal.
Right.
And then days where I wouldn't. And that like dichotomy there was really hard for my friends at that time to understand, which looking back, I'm like, that's really lame. Google. Like, just Google something, read something, because that's not just me.
You.
Or ask me, yeah. And they never asked. They wouldn't check in on me, wouldn't anything. Looking back, like they were just super immature and not great friends, or just were more focused on socializing.
Yeah. And I think like what you like, there are friends that are just there for like the good times.
Yeah.
And they're not there for you really. Yeah. And it of course sucks when you realize that.
It's not to say like those people you have to cut out of your life, but that was my main friend group. And so it was either I'm going to be mentally beat up and emotionally beat up all the time by this group, or I'm going to make changes in my life and maybe be lonely and not have that many friends for a while and make new friends. And that's the direction that I ended up going.
Yeah. I also will say like there's nothing more isolating and feeling lonely than like being in like a group hangout and feeling like no one's getting it. Like no one's getting what you're going through.
Yeah. Have you had experiences like that?
Yeah, actually. I feel like I still have them, but definitely like more so in the beginning when I like really wasn't feeling well and I wasn't sure how to manage not feeling well. I would still like, or like when people would come over or like we'd go out somewhere, I just felt like I couldn't relate.
Yeah.
And I felt like, they were all carrying on and having fun. And I think their intent was like, well, we want this to be fun for you. So we don't want to talk about what's happening. Like we want this to be a distraction for you.
Absolutely.
Which I don't think is like a bad thing, but I think what I was needing at that time was people to talk about it with me.
Yeah.
And I think even now, I think the friends that I'm the closest to are the people who really talk to me about what I'm going through and not just try to distract me.
Absolutely.
I just don't think I'm this type of person who needs distractions. Like I want to be real and authentic and I want to talk about all the things.
And you'll say when you want a distraction. I think that is like one of the hardest parts, or like maybe the like tipping point of all of this friendship conversation is communication. And so like if at the beginning we might not have the words to be able to express or say what we need, and so just asking, hey, do you want a distraction or do you want to talk about this, is a game changer and huge. Versus trying to think like, oh, what would I want in this situation, because we're all different. Like what you want might not be what we want.
Right. I totally agree. I think it's like being able to like communicate to your friends and your family, like even if like, let's say they're being supportive and they're talking about it with you, but you hit a point where you're like, okay, now I'm done talking about it. I want to just like hang out now. It's totally fine to be like, thanks guys. I'm so glad we talked about that. Like, let's kind of just like talk about this now.
Yeah, totally.
And I think when I've done that in the past, like people are like, okay, great. Like, let's, they're really honestly like down for whatever. You just have to let them know.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And it feels so awkward at the start when you do that, but the benefits are tenfold. You get more comfortable doing it and people are super receptive to it. So at the end of the day, it's a benefit for everybody.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know what to do. And so I think guidance is nice.
Yeah.
And, just help them out a little bit.
Yeah. Nobody can read our minds. It sucks having to be the one that educates, but it's for your best interests to put in the time and to do that.
Totally.
Okay. Let's talk about like how making plans and canceling plans and the friendship game is when you're chronically sick.
I think for me, for the most part, people have been understanding. I think the canceling plans is still awkward. For some reason, some people still feel like entitled to your time if you've committed to something.
Yes.
And so it's, it's like I could wake up in the morning and know that like by the evening I'm not going to be feeling well.
Yes.
But I could also wake up in the morning and be okay and think that when 7 p.m. rolls around, I'll be okay. But things change throughout the day.
Yes.
And so I think a last minute canceling should be respected and okay from someone who's chronically ill.
Yeah.
I want to say like the buffer is like 2 hours before, like before someone leaves their house. It's probably good to give them a heads up.
Totally.
Yeah, I think like before someone starts like getting ready for whatever you're doing, give them a heads up. And I think at that point, like you're giving them like enough of a notice that it should be okay. Like they should be able to survive their evening or hang out without you.
Yeah. And if they don't have plans then for the night, like, is that worse, or is it worse that your friend who's chronically sick, you want them to push through everything, be in pain, be uncomfortable, and hang out with you? So I think that's what's important to keep in the back of the mind, that like, yeah, canceling sucks for everybody, but there's a reason why that sick person is canceling. And I don't think you want to see what that reason looks like, probably.
I think another thing with canceling for me, I find it less stressful when the person doesn't respond with like, okay, let's reschedule. I think that's also hard. It's like, I couldn't make it today. I don't exactly know when I'm going to be feeling better. And so I think just leaving it open-ended and just being like, okay, we'll figure something out another time. Yeah. Like just, it's not probably not the right time to nail down another hangout.
Totally agree. And maybe it's the right time to be like, I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything I can do? It seems like you're going through something right now.
Yeah. Or like, just like totally understand. No worries at all.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. Hope you feel better soon. I'm here for you.
Absolutely. I think that that's like the perfect way to do it. The perfect way to do it.
I think less questions and more just like loving statements.
Yeah. We just want to be loved.
Yeah.
Oh, but it is tricky and it is sad. And being a sick chick, like you do miss out on a lot of things, be that travel, weddings, baby showers, stuff like that. Yeah. I think at this point I've missed 10 of my friends' weddings, and it doesn't get easier anytime. It's still heartbreaking that you're missing out on these like big life moments, not even just like the Friday night or Saturday night hang. And I think when like those invites come in, like that's when the anxiety starts of, damn, I really hope I'm going to be able to do this in 6 months and a year. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough.
I luckily haven't had to miss like major things like that. Yeah. I think that would feel a lot more disheartening. That being said, I mean, I can probably look back now and be like, oh, I probably shouldn't have gone to that big event.
Yes.
So maybe I should have probably missed out on those things. But I think, I don't know, there's something about like pushing yourself a little bit when it is something important, but just kind of understand like I'm probably not going to feel good after this. Yeah. But I'm willing to like take that risk because this is so important to me. And then I think on the flip side, like if you do have to miss like your friend's wedding, etc., like hopefully that friend's like a good enough friend that understands it and doesn't hold it against you.
100%. And I've had split.
I know you've had a split experience with that.
I've had the best experience of week of, hey, I'm not gonna be able to make this. I'm in a really bad spot. If I get on that plane, I'm gonna be in the hospital. And like I will 10 times out of 10 choose stay home versus hospitalization. Setting myself up for that.
Because either way you're missing the events.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
the friends that respond with, oh my gosh, I love you, I'm so sorry. Of course, like do what's right for you. That feels really good. And then the friend, like I just had to miss my friend's wedding in Cabo because I was in the hospital. Yeah. And when they came back, they like drove to our house. They brought me flowers for being in the hospital. And then like we looked through all of their wedding photos, watched their first dance, like made us really be able to relive those moments with them. And still we're like, we love you. You're sick right now. And like, we also care about that. It was really, really special.
Exactly. And it's like, let's say like you didn't hear from that friend again. It's like, well, why were you sacrificing your health to go to this person's wedding who
doesn't
even care about you actually?
Yeah. Maybe I'll share that story. Should I do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. This is the bad one.
I mean, it's good for us listening.
It is. So this is like truly the worst case scenario of what can happen. I was friends with this girl. She was in my wedding. I was going to be in her wedding. And throughout her engagement year, I started to get sick again. And, I think it was like that fall, I had two bachelorette parties I was supposed to go to. The first one I missed, and I was really sad. I sent champagne to the group and whatnot. Yeah. That also impacted that friendship, kind of has fizzled out a bit. I think it was because like I could do other things that weekend but couldn't fly, and there was a misunderstanding of like why I couldn't fly. But
was there some sort of question like you were able to fly for this and now you can't fly for this?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So when I went to this other girl's bachelorette party, then I think it made the other girl mad that I couldn't come to hers, which is understandable, but from an outsider's perspective. But from a sick chick perspective, it's like, duh, I didn't feel good that weekend, and I felt better by the other weekend, and they were months apart.
Consistent.
Exactly.
No. Yeah.
So for the really bad story, I go to this girl's bachelorette party. I push through. I don't use my cane during it. I have like 2 or 3 glasses of wine throughout the weekend. By the end of the weekend, I was so fucking tired. I almost missed the last dinner. I got home and slept for a week. I started prednisone again, and I could just feel like, shit, I think a hospitalization might be imminent.
Right.
But I kept trying to push through. And then it was her wedding, coming up to her wedding.
Yeah.
And I had lost probably, when I bought my dress to wear for her wedding, I was losing prednisone weight. So I was probably like 30, 40 pounds heavier.
Yep.
By the point of her wedding, I was tiny and the dress did not fit. And she would text me every single week like, hey, have you gotten your dress hemmed? Hey, have you gotten your dress hemmed? This was a very expensive dress. And so at that point I was like, I'm not going to hem this dress. I'm just going to sell it and buy something that actually fits.
Sure.
So I was, like kind of punting that ball. Maybe I should have been more communicative or whatnot, but that was annoying her. And then we were talking about, what the wedding weekend would look like. And I had lost my hair during Cytoxin pretty heavily, and it was growing back in.
Yep.
I did have a wig, and she said, are you going to wear your wig for the wedding or do hair extensions? And I said, no, I don't think so. And the fact that
I don't like that question.
I don't like that question either. It's like that, you don't get to have any opinion on if I do that. And asking that's super inappropriate.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of me being like, why are you making me feel bad about being sick? And also like after her bachelorette party, she did not text me and say like, hey, I know that you're having a hard time. Thanks for pushing through and showing up. It was, that was expected. Next story.
Yeah.
The worst part was I said, hey, I'm having to use my cane more and more and wheelchairs right now. I just wanted to give you the heads up, which I should not have to give someone a heads up if I'm using a cane or a wheelchair in the first place.
Right.
Her response was, well, you didn't use a cane at my bachelorette party, so I don't think you're going to have to use one at my wedding.
Oof.
And it was very apparent that all of these things that she cared about were for the aesthetic and the photos and whatnot.
The look
and not,
yeah.
Hey, one of my best friends who I invited to be a bridesmaid is going through a hard time. How do I make this easier for her? It was like all these questions that made me feel like shit for being sick.
Yeah.
So come the week of her wedding, I'm being incredibly overly communicative with her, letting her know like things are going worse. Things are getting worse. Things are getting worse. I end up in the hospital. And she's like, hey, if you can make the wedding, like, I don't care. You can just like sit in the church and like watch the wedding. You don't have to like be a part of the wedding party. You don't have to do anything. Just like, if you can just show up like that, that's fine. And I was like, okay, that sounds great.
Which is nice of her. I think finally, like, I mean, a little bit, I think it was rooted in like, I don't know if I want you in my pictures.
Yeah.
That being said, she gave you an out at least of, being able to attend and not be a part of the bridal party.
Exactly.
So that's nice.
So that was super nice.
But what happened next?
So then I'm in the hospital and it's her wedding weekend. I send champagne. I am texting and I'm like, I would love to like FaceTime you while you guys are getting ready. And she was like, I don't think I'm going to have time for that. And there goes the rest of the week. It's not responding to me, not any kind of communication, not thank you for the champagne, nothing, just goes radio silent. And after her wedding, I was like, hey, like would love to catch up and like hear about the wedding. I'm so sorry I missed it. You know, this has been a tough hospitalization, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'll get back to you when I come back from my honeymoon. I never heard back from her and have never talked to her since.
You literally like never heard from her again.
Never heard from her again.
That's wild.
And I know it was because I think she thought I was making her wedding week about myself because I had a health crisis going on. And part of me understands that because, like, you've got a lot going on when you're the bride. The other part of me is if one of my bridesmaids was sick during my wedding week, I would make time and space for them because they're one of my best friends. And be like,
if you were
I'm
like
sorry.
chosen and if you're chosen and asked to be a bridesmaid, that says a lot about your friendship.
Yeah.
And then it should go both ways. Like if you're unable to partake and do all those things, like your friends should understand. And I get it. They're like, it's their wedding week and they're busy and all of that. But at some point later, there should be communication and like, we missed you so much. And like, how are you feeling? What's going on? All those things.
Absolutely. And like, I don't know. I would also know that like my bridesmaid would be really sad and like upset that they couldn't be there. So I probably would do something to make them feel a little bit better. Like send them a picture or FaceTime them during the wedding weekend at some point to be like, we miss you. Like we're all here. Send them a video of that or something. But it was just like the most selfish thing I've ever experienced. And it made me have a really tough time thinking like people don't want to be friends with me because I'm sick and I can't show up for them in the way that they need or want. Which that shouldn't have been how I felt. It should have been this girl is being really cruel and, you know, caring more about aesthetics and pictures and herself than about one of her quote unquote best friends.
Yeah. I mean, I think from my vantage point, it's like good riddance. Yeah. I think, you know, that friend was never a true friend to you.
Yeah.
Or at least like shifted into someone who doesn't care about you.
Definitely was a shift. Shift. And at the and part of that too is like twofold. When I first started getting sick, she was awesome and would show up and like went above and beyond to make me feel supported.
Yeah.
And that was during like my Cytoxin period. Once that ended, I think there was a disconnect of like, I'm still sick. I'm just not in a disease active state. And so I think it was like, oh, I'm going to have to keep, I've set the bar so high of how I show up. Do I have to continue this for the rest of my life? I don't want to do that. And instead of dropping down a little bit, still being there, she just pivoted and changed who she was to me.
Yeah. That's awful.
It was really sad. It was really sad.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And then I think the next week missed your wedding and you were like, it's okay. I love you. I miss you. I wish that you could have been there too. Like, I understand that you're sad you couldn't be there.
It was a really fun wedding. So we definitely missed you.
I know. And you looked so freaking pretty. Oh my God.
Thank you.
The prettiest.
I think we'll do another one.
Good.
Like another party.
I like that. I think weddings should be celebrated annually.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't we talk a little bit about like, what does socializing look for us now?
Yes.
Like how is it different? What are things that we, you know, what are changes that we've made?
That's a great question. So I think now it's a couple things. One is I have more confidence in my identity as a sick person, and I'm no longer embarrassed about the things I cannot do. Like the internalized ableism is getting lessened. So I give myself more grace. I also understand that some of my health might scare other people. And I just try to get like a good temperature check of like how deep and personal do these people want to get. And I don't hold that against them. It's just like, I know who I can turn to for different things. And last thing is like how I socialize. So I usually do maybe one thing a week or one thing every other week.
Yeah.
It's time bounded. I've gotten really good at the Midwestern. Oh, well, looks like it's time to get going. And, and that's okay.
Gotta go check on the chickens.
Gotta go check on the chickens. The cows are mooing, so gotta go. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And just like lower spoon activity. So instead of going bar hopping, it's like, let's go to dinner for an hour or 2 hours and then I'll go home.
Yeah.
What about you? What kind of shifts have you made?
I think I definitely just like socialize way less now. So I think that in itself has been a huge shift. Like I spend a lot more time with myself. I spend a lot more time, you know, with close family and my husband and my dog. And so I think also learning for me, like there's different like circles and tiers of friends. I think before like everyone was my best friend.
Yes.
And now I'm learning that this is like my closer circle. These are like more acquaintances, and kind of like shifting how I communicate, because I feel like I was setting myself up for failure in the sense like if I treat everyone like a best friend, then they expect me to show up for things and do those things. And so when I can't do them, then they feel disappointed. So kind of just having a little bit more of a like an acquaintance relationship with some people.
Yeah.
So I don't like overpromise and overcommit to things.
I think that's such a wise way to say that. Like it's kind of the great resettling that happens when you get diagnosed, and however painful it is at first, it allows then for us to have, I think, deeper, more meaningful relationships with like our close circle, and makes it a bit easier when you're deciding on which activities you do and don't want to go to or can and can't.
Totally. I definitely, my natural inclination though is like if I'm having a great conversation with someone, I'm like, oh, we should hang out, like let's go do this, and I just get excited and I get carried away. And I have to now like stop myself from like throwing that out there.
Rein yourself in, Biz.
If I can't like follow through with it.
Have you pivoted to like more virtual hangs, like FaceTiming more, calling more versus in-person hangouts?
Yeah, I think it's been nice. Like a few times friends have organized like a friend hangout on FaceTime.
Oh, that's cute.
Or Zoom. And I feel like that makes me feel good because I can just, you know, it feels like I'm going out to dinner with them, but I'm on my couch and I don't have to exert as much energy.
I love that. And I totally agree. Like the virtual hangouts are awesome. When I was going through Cytoxin, it was during COVID, like during the isolation period of COVID. And so like nobody was really hanging out. And so I think people were more willing to do virtual things. And Cooper and I would do like themed Zooms with our families. We did like when Bridgerton first came out, we did like old English tea party on Zoom. And it was
that's so cute.
So fun, so cute, something to look forward to that was like dressing up and doing something, but time bounded and not the burden of hosting people. And that was really, really fun. So
I love that.
Pro tip for anybody that's like, oh, I miss hanging out, but I can't handle or can't physically do the hangout right now.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's a great tip. I think another thing I was thinking is like when you get sick, like a lot of people will reach out and they'll text you, they'll call you, they want to be there for you. But a lot of times people say things like they'll text and be like, please know how I can help. Like, what can I do? I'm here if you need anything. And like the problem I have found with that is like it puts like the burden of coming up with something on me.
Right.
And then I find myself like thinking like, okay, like what do I need? Like how, like I don't want to just tell everyone like, no, I don't need anything, because like I do need stuff.
Yeah.
And it just feels awkward having to ask. And it's like a very broad throwing something out. So like what I've liked the most is like when people text and they send options. They're like, okay, like, do you want me to drop off food? Do you want me to make you something? Do you want me to send you like a little care package? And that is like so easy for me to respond to. Just like a quick, like this one, like that's what I want.
And then it takes the burden off you of guessing what that person is comfortable with. Like, is that someone that wants to cook for me or wants to come and clean my pantry for me? Or is that someone that just wants to like text check in?
Yes, exactly.
I love that. I really love that actually. How do you like, for the friends that have done that, how do you now replicate that to other friends or other people that will text you? Like, how can I support you?
I guess like when I've gotten options, it makes it, now I have like a bank of things that I can like ask people to do. But to your point, like I don't know what their capabilities are necessarily.
Yeah.
So, and it's also like awkward to be like, can you send me a care package? Like that just sounds like a weird thing to ask someone.
I really need a new Skims robe. Do you have $150 that you want to spend on me?
But to that point, I also think one thing that's been like, it's for me, it's not about like, and I know for you either, it's not about like the price of the gift, right? It's really the gesture.
No, it's the gesture.
And like one of the nicest things that I've received are when people send handwritten notes.
Yes.
Like, I love that. I've definitely gotten into the zone of like, I don't love texting. I find it very like burdensome, and like it just takes a lot of effort for me. And, you know, I would rather like a phone call or a FaceTime, and then like a handwritten note is like the nicest thing that I feel that people can do.
Especially when most of our mail is just endless amounts of medical bills. And so having something positive in your mailbox is awesome.
Totally. Or like even like if you want to just like, I think mailing is also difficult. I've had some friends like write a note for me and then like take a picture and send it to me.
That's really cute.
And that feels like just as like important, honestly.
I love that. Yes. We should put together like a Not So Sick Chicks suggested support options that people can send around. Okay. We'll do that for y'all.
So. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. One question that I have is for the people, like when you're first getting started or meeting someone new that you're becoming friends with, how do you gauge like what their comfortability is with you sharing the most? Like when people say, how are you? Instead of going like, I'm good, I'm fine. Versus how do I gauge like, this is a really hard time, I'm super depressed, I'm in a ton of pain, without making them scared?
I think I'm like really honest up front. So like if I get asked that, I'll say something around the lines of like, oh, I don't know if you know, but like I'm diagnosed with X, Y, and Z, and I'm like going through my treatments right now. And then I'll kind of gauge their response. If they're like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, long, awkward pause, I'm like, okay, see you next time.
And my dog is great. How's your dog?
Yeah. Then I usually go into like, tell me about you. Like, how are things? Like, how's this going on? So there's that. And then I feel like the people that respond with like, I have heard, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it. And then I usually respond with, no, I would love to talk about it. And then we get into it. And so I think just being upfront, I think it's just a quick, easy way to tell if people want to talk about it with you or not.
And then I guess one step further than that, for the people that we wish could do that, how do you handle like the disappointment of them not being able to?
I think for me, it's like understanding that people have different capabilities, right? So as much as they may care, they don't necessarily have that capability to show up in that way or like communicate and like be emotional. And so I think just like kind of being like, okay, like that's not something that they're able to do.
I totally agree. And like just reminding ourselves that like we all don't know all of each other's skeletons in the closet, and maybe they had a family member that had like an awful health time, and so it's more painful for them to show up.
Yeah. And I think people are different. Like for every person you find that wants to talk about these things, there's a person who doesn't. Yeah. So you just don't know where people are coming from.
And there's also like a fine line of finding ways to be understanding or, you know, quote unquote, like make a reason for them and someone being a bad friend. And those are two very different things. Sometimes it's hard to kind of sort that out. But I think if someone just can't show up, that's one thing. If someone is being mean or making you feel shitty about not being able to
that's
be
a whole
there,
different
that's
thing.
a whole different thing.
Yeah. I think it's pretty, it gets easier to tell which type of person you're dealing with.
Yeah. And I think there is like a grieving process too of the friends that we lose or cycle out of. That's normal. But I will say, like, just give yourself time and grace, because that ultimately is allowing space for new people to enter your lives. And like, I'm super grateful that I had this great resettling, because the friends that I have now are just like amazing, amazing humans. And the friends I had then were like honestly more surface level.
Right. Totally.
I think another important thing of like understanding how to balance our social needs and self-care is getting comfortable with making and saying boundaries and keeping them. What kind of like experience have you had with that, and tips do you have about navigating that when we're people pleasers?
Yeah, I think it takes practice, right? So I think in the beginning it's highly uncomfortable to say any of this. It's not going to feel easy. And that's because it's not. So I think give yourself grace that it's not going to feel comfortable. And I think the way that's been the most effective to me, like if I get invited to something, because I feel guilt when I cancel, I'll usually say up front, like, I'd love to come. My health is kind of like, or the way I feel is kind of touch and go day to day. And so I'll let you know closer to then how I'm feeling. Is that okay?
I love that. Like from the get-go, just being open.
From the get-go, just being open. And then I think when I'm at an event, or if I'm going to something, I will usually send a text if I'm not feeling well, but I'm still going. I'll usually send a text before and just say, so excited to see you. Just FYI, like not like a super like high energy day today, or today's like a big pain day, but I still want to come and see you. And that way it just takes the burden off of saying it in person.
Yeah.
Because you may not find the right spot in a conversation to throw that in.
Totally.
And it's not, I don't think for me, it's like, I don't want to say it aloud to them, but it's more just like socially finding the spot to be like, oh, like I'm not feeling that great.
Especially if there's like other people there that you don't know as well. I also think like adding in like, I'm not feeling great, so I'm going to try to come for like an hour, and time bound it is super helpful.
Time bounding is super helpful. Mm-hmm. Totally agree. And that way when that, whatever it is, hour and a half rolls around, you're like, okay guys, I'm going to head out, and people already know why you're leaving.
Yeah.
I get really uncomfortable when I'm leaving and people are like, oh, like, where are you going? What's going on? Like, what are you headed to? And, the answer is like my bed. Home. That's where I'm going. Home. Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard. I think it's really tricky. At this point now, I'm comfortable being like, oh, I'm going home. Like, I'm not feeling super great. And then, it's fine. But at the beginning, it is super hard to do. Another thing that I think is challenging, or that I struggled with, was when I first started putting up boundaries, I would overindulge, over-explain, I'm not feeling well today because of blah, 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 blah. And practicing not doing that and just saying, like, I don't feel well. You don't owe anyone a deep explanation of why you don't feel good, or like what symptoms are the worst today. You can just say, I'm not feeling well. And that should be enough.
I think in my ideal world, I wouldn't even have to say I'm not feeling well. Mm-hmm. I would just say I'm going to head home.
I think that,
like, people should understand and respect, and just, like, why do you have to say you're not, like, why is that the only reason that you
are allowed
to go home?
Yeah. So true. So true. And I think like sometimes the analogies can be helpful without having to like go too deep. Like, I'm having a low spoon day, or my stoplight is at a red. This is a no-go. Or I'm coasting into a yellow.
We talked about spoon theory in a previous episode, but I think the spoon analogy is really helpful.
Yeah.
And it's easy to explain to new people as well.
Yeah.
I also really like the stoplight one. Yeah. So I think like with the stoplights, it's like green, yellow, red. So like green is like, I'm good to go. Yellow being, caution, proceed with caution. Like, I may or may not make it throughout this whole thing. And then red is like, I have hit my limit and I can't do it anymore right now.
Absolutely. That's the analogy I actually would use at work with my coworkers.
Okay.
And it was super helpful of like, here's how much you can expect from me in any given day. I love a good analogy. It makes you not have to think about the words to use.
I think they make it easier, and they make the other person more receptive, instead of feeling like, oh, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Or, like making them feel uncomfortable. I think it just makes it easier for both parties.
Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
Yep.
What about like hosting friends? Because that one is hard. Letting someone into your home, having them have access to like really see you potentially at really low points, carving out time to be like, you're going to have to entertain yourself for a little bit right now because I got to go lay down. Like, how the hell do you get comfortable doing that?
I've like definitely fallen asleep when people are over. So I think, like I've gotten way too comfortable with hosting at home that I'm just like, I'm in my PJs, I'm on the couch. Like,
I love that.
If I knock out, then, you can either be here when I wake up, or I'll feel a little uncomfortable, but also laugh about it later.
Please watch me sleep.
It depends like what combo of meds I'm on, what my treatments are. Like currently, knock on wood, I'm like feeling decent amount of energy. And so that wouldn't be happening. But how I try to maintain that is like, so normally when people are coming over, I will like cook, I will have snacks out, I will, I'll have a whole like hosting situation going on. Now I don't do that anymore. As much as I want to, I just tell myself like it's just not going to go well. I will have like negative spoons afterwards.
Yes.
And I tend to order in a lot more instead of cooking. Or if I do end up cooking, it's like something very simple.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a lot of energy as far as like me cutting things and standing up for a long period of time. So Absolutely. I think my limit is like a 30-minute cook time. And if I can't keep it to under 30 minutes, then I'll order something.
I love that's a great rule to hold yourself to.
Yeah.
A really great rule. Because I think it is like it's a exercise in self-control of like
it is.
I'm not going to be my normal me of cleaning everything frantically and making sure everything is making everything nice, as Dorinda says on Bravo. Like just accepting that
make it nice.
Make it nice. Just accepting that like this is good enough. Because ultimately, like, your friends just want to see you. Like, they don't give a shit if there's shoes out or you need a vacuum or something.
I know. That one has been really hard for me because I'm very, like, my house has always kind of looked like a model house, model home, whatever they're called. And so
you keep it
I
pristine.
have had to learn just let it be.
I think one other thing is, like, when you get more comfortable with your friends, you, like, really can do anything. This weekend, we had one of Cooper's friends visiting, and usually if it's one of Cooper's friends, I want to still like be very engaged and be a part of everything, but I gave myself permission to be like, I'm going to let them have time together, and I don't feel well, so I'm going to go outside and read my book for 6 hours, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And with the right friends, they are okay with that.
Yeah. I also feel like, do you feel like you've gotten to a point where you just don't really care?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. I'm really close to getting there, which is, I'm really excited for it.
Me too. Because I remember when you first got sick and would host people, you'd be like, do you think it's okay if I leave the dinner table? And I'd be like, hell yes, go to your room, prioritize you. But it's uncomfortable. Like, same with me when I first got sick. It's uncomfortable to be like, bye.
Yeah, I think the reason I feel uncomfortable is that I associate it with like when you're not sick and you're just leaving a social hangout because like you don't want to be there. It feels like that.
Yeah.
And this is not that. This is like you have a legit reason to not be there. And so to get up from a dinner table, to get up from the living room and be like, I'm going to go rest now, guys. If you're not welcomed with everyone like cheering you on, basically, like got to change up that circle a little bit or communicate to them that I need some like excitement when I'm leaving the room.
Yes. Gas me up, fam. I think like one tip that's really helped me is when I am in those situations, and if I do start having some like negative self-talk about feeling guilt or like this internalized ableism that I'm only leaving because I don't want to be there, I remind myself like, 1, the normal amount of pain is 0 pain. No one else at this table is in stage 6 pain right now. Yeah. 2, I run through my diagnoses in my brain and I'm like, you have XYZ ABC. That's enough to be able to prioritize yourself every single time. And then the last thing that I do is, okay, if this was B at the table and she needed to do this, I would be encouraging her to go.
Yeah, completely.
And like have that same respect for yourself.
Yeah. I also, another thing that I found useful is because I usually like overdo it. Mm-hmm. I like having time limits for myself is really good. So I will just put an alarm or like a timer on my phone and be like 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever it is. And when the timer goes off, regardless if I'm like still like feeling good, it's like I know that that tipping point is about to come.
It's for a reason.
So it's for a reason. So I will go ahead and start saying my goodbyes and head out.
That's such a I'm gonna take that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I really
because
really
to push
that.
yourself. Yeah, like why wait until like you're like, okay, now I'm done.
Yeah, it's like the same with pain. Like why wait until you're in too much pain? Stay ahead of the spoon count. Stay ahead of the pain. Like we know these things.
Yeah. Totally.
And then I also like you and I do this. We'll text each other like, do you think it's okay? And sometimes you just need the validation to be like, yeah. You just need your friend to tell you that it's okay. And that's also
exactly.
All right.
I've never been met with someone saying, no, I think you should stay there longer, or like, no, I think someone would find that rude. I've always been welcomed with like, yes, of course, like you can head home. Like you shouldn't even think twice about it.
Yeah. But sometimes it's nice
Yeah.
hearing it from a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get your friend who wants you to go home.
Yeah. Find your homebody friend. Okay, maybe the last thing we talk about is like, how do you meet new friends and like expand your friend circle when you are sick and kind of going through this resettling?
Yeah, I think that has actually been such a surprise, like the new friends that I've made.
Yes.
I've made friends through joining like online support communities, which has been really nice. They're not necessarily in my area, but like we're friends over FaceTime or phone calls, and they're either, you know, diagnosed with a cancer themselves or they're supporting someone with cancer. And so I have found that really beneficial. Also like through my social networks, like friends of friends
Yes.
that have gone through something similar, like getting closer to them. And I think friends that were in my outer circles who have family that's going through something like this, like I've gotten closer to them too.
That totally makes sense. It's like you can share a language with them that you can't candidly with other people. And it allows you to get kind of deeper and be more authentic and honest about like how you're really doing, I think.
Yeah, completely. How has it been for you?
I think similar. I was surprised that once I became okay with saying like I am sick, I'm autoimmune, these are my diseases, I found it was easier to find people that wanted to support someone like me or wanted to share in that level. And like you're saying, like the online support communities, it is mind-boggling to me that 15 of my like dear friends, I've met one of them in person.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that's like my ladies who autoimmune friend group.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're the people that I would like turn to for a lot of things in life and show up and speak my language. So I think like giving yourself the permission to make new friends, even though that's scary as shit when you're an adult, is like really scary.
Yes.
It's so worth it.
But I feel like with adult friendships, you pretty much know right away whether it's someone that you're going to be close with. It doesn't take 20 hangouts to get there.
No. And you're also not drinking at a bar, not really talking about life.
Yeah, like you're having deep conversations pretty much up front.
Yeah. I totally agree.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Wonderful.
Well, that's kind of the gist with friends.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's fun. Hopefully you guys found that helpful. I think it's just like it's something that you pick up over time. You have to navigate your different friendships and
finding like your voice on how to tell people how you need them to show up, how to set your boundaries. There's a lot of like however much this is other people, it's also you.
Yes.
Maybe I would love for people to slide into our DMs this week and like tell us their friendship stories, like friendship horror stories, friendship superhero stories. I think there's a lot of like healing that gets done when you say like, was this a bad experience? Like, was that person a bad friend? And people are like, yeah.
It's nice to get that validation externally. So yes, slide into our DMs, let us know your stories, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Love you guys. Bye.
Love you. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Not So Sick Chicks. Remember, new episodes drop every Monday.
Subscribe and rate 5 stars, and of course, send this to a friend who is a sick chick trying to be a little less sick. We're all in this together.
Follow us on socials at the Not So Sick Chicks.
And we'll see you next week.